Welcome to a pop culture edition of Outside the Overton. I'm Joshua Vandernoord. It's not just me tonight, but I'm not joined by Zeb. If you saw from the cover art and title, we're going to be doing a Fantastic Four review. Last week, I did a Superman review with Jack from KinoFlex. He's joining me again tonight. How you doing, Jack?
Great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again, Josh.
Yeah, I had a really good time last week talking about Superman with you, and now I thought with the new Fantastic Four movie, it's a good opportunity to talk again. After this, I don't know, like I can't really think of any future movies coming out, but I'm enjoying the content. I've been eating up a lot of your videos that you've been making on KinoFlex reviews, and they're really good. I recommend if you guys are watching at home and haven't gone and given Jack's channel a like, it's KinoFlex reviews, and it's really good. He's got a lot of really insightful content.
Yeah, and just recently I hit the milestone of 2,000 subscribers, so I'm feeling good
Ooh.
about that.
Heck yeah, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
that I was talking about that with Zeb because we mentioned it a little bit last week, but when I was in college, I had a movie review show on the radio, and I was saying I was like I kind of want to get back into doing movie reviews, and he's like, yeah, but that's a little bit of normie content. I'm like, yeah, but it sells, you know what I mean? And it's fun. Like I enjoy it, so why not just do it? You know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah,
I think
exactly.
yes. So with that being said, I think we'll get right into it. Fantastic Four First Steps. It is the official debut of the Marvel Cinematic Universe Fantastic Four. And, you know, like when they basically teased Avengers in the end credit scene of Iron Man 1 back in 2008. There's been talks of like what's next, when is Spider-Man coming in, when's the X-Men coming in, when's the Fantastic Four coming into the MCU, and it took like a decade and a half, but we finally got the Fantastic Four, and I want to get your thoughts on it, Jack, because I've got a lot of opinions and there's a lot of conflicting reviews of this movie, so I'm very eager to hear what you think about it.
Well, if you follow my content at all, you'll know that I'm very critical of the MCU, especially this year. And this movie's going to be no different. Though do think it's the best one to come out compared to Thunderbolts and Captain America: Brave New World. Even including like the shows that have come out on Disney Plus, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Ironheart. I've not seen Daredevil: Born Again yet, but Fantastic
It
Four is still.
sucks. It's terrible.
I'll take your word for it. That is what friends have told me too. But I would still say that Fantastic Four is better than all of those, but I still have my issues with it, despite being a lifelong Fantastic Four fan. I would actually say I'm more of a fan of that team in the Marvel Universe than any of the others. Like, I'm more of a fan of the Fantastic Four than Avengers, X-Men, Defenders, whatever team there is, or teams there are, because there's something very unique about the Fantastic Four in that they are a family first. With all these other teams, you have a bunch of unique individuals, sure, that bring their own different dynamics, but they're more so co-workers at the end of the day. Like they
Right.
can leave at any time, and that's kind of what happens frequently. Like the rosters change with all new different members that have their own different dynamics. That's not the case with the Fantastic Four, where the appeal is them staying together as a family and working together to work through different types of problems. And I feel as though that's what makes this team compelling, and it communicated a lot of the strengths in early Marvel, especially when uh, there were actual stakes and payoffs to the relationship, such as Mr. Fantastic marrying the Invisible Girl, where they eventually gave birth to Franklin Richards. Um, for a lot of fans at the time, like that was just a very uh, heartwarming like payoff to to their story that you weren't really
Right.
getting anywhere else.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I completely agree. The Fantastic Four, like when I was, before Infinity War even happened, and there was all this like excitement still for Marvel with the masses. People were talking about X-Men and Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. When are they going to join in? I was more excited for Fantastic Four for the same reasons. I really enjoy those characters for the reasons you said. They are like a family. They have great dynamics. They have great character. They're like the essence of each character is like this perfectly blended cornucopia where you've got the intelligent but socially awkward Reed Richards, who has a crush on and eventually is married to the intelligent and, kind of like heart of the team Invisible Woman. Then you've got her brash younger brother, Johnny, and Ben Grimm, who is the Thing, which is Reed Richards' best friend. And they kind of have this like Johnny and him have this love-hate relationship. They like each member has a relationship with the other. You know what I mean? Like with the Avengers, you can think, well, Captain America and Iron Man have this contentious relationship. And each member, they're just like together. It's kind of like the appeal of Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, before the movie, no one even knew who those characters were, but James Gunn was able to give them persona and kind of blend them together that way. And the Fantastic Four does that naturally very well. So with that being said, I kind of want to get into my next question because I think based on your response, I think we're kind of in the same page where it's like, it was good, but it wasn't great. Is it going to save Marvel? I think we both would say no. But before we get into like what the implications are for Marvel, let's just look at Fantastic Four first steps as it stands. And I want to start at the beginning of the story of this movie, which is the casting. So I want to ask you, what did you think of the casting for this movie?
I wasn't a fan
that was controversial from the beginning.
Yeah, I was not a fan of the casting when they were first announced. I saw Pedro Pascal, and that was that was the casting I had the biggest problem with because he's just in everything now, and it's like, man, give me a break. When am I not going to see this guy in something? Like he was in The Last of Us, he's in Eddington, an Ari Aster film I saw. He was okay. He was pretty good in that, but yeah, I'm just seeing him everywhere, and just kind of it's just kind of getting old because he's just not really bringing anything new for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting Pedro Pascal burnt out, and there's even a meme going around. You may have seen it where it's like he's very touchy-feely with all his female co-stars. Yeah, and he goes, "Well, this is my anxiety."
Not for the co-star for The Last of Us.
Yeah, not for Bella Ramsey or whatever yeah. Her name is. Sure for Vanessa Kirby though. I mean, absolutely. I'd get real anxious around her too. But I actually thought, I don't know about you, so I thought all of the other cast choices in this movie were actually really good. I mean, Vanessa Kirby, she looks the part and she acts the part great. Like she was perfect. I don't think anyone had a problem with that one. I forget the guy's name, but whoever plays the Thing, Ben Grimm, he did very, very well. The other one that was kind of controversial was, I forget his name, but the actor who plays Johnny Storm.
I think
do you remember
his
his
name? Is Quinn or something?
Yeah, Joseph Quinn.
Name, maybe Joseph Quinn. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yes, and he's been very popular lately. I think he's a good. I do think he's a good actor. He kind of came into his own in Stranger Things season 4 as the metalhead guy. He's been in A Quiet Place Part 3. I think he's a good actor, and people were a little upset about him because he's not like a super handsome guy. He's kind of a conventionally attractive guy, but he's not like Chris Evans, where he's like rock star hot, pun intended. But I actually thought he played this character really, really well. And he actually ended up becoming the heart and soul of the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the casting for Johnny or Ben either. Like I was familiar with the actor playing the Thing from the show The Bear. Like he plays a
Yeah.
cousin to the main character. He's a good actor. He's a good actor. I think they didn't give him a whole lot to work with in this movie, but we'll get to that eventually. Uh, Johnny, like I'm typically he's kind of like a heartthrob. Like he's much more macho in other portrayals, and I feel like as though Marvel kind of toned that down, as if to say this kind of archetype doesn't fly anymore. But it kind of sucks that he was toned down a bit. But I'm just thankful that he wasn't he didn't turn out like other characters nowadays in the comics who used to be ladies men, but now they're chasing after guys like Iceman. Like they made him gay a couple years back
I remember
for
that.
no reason. Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah,
Uh,
just because.
but yeah, but he's still straight in this movie at least. So for who knows how long though. But with that being said, yeah. Also, I didn't really have an issue with Vanessa Kirby's performance. I did have some issues with her character, and really like a lot of the other characters in the film. But we can get to that eventually. Like with
Yeah,
it,
yeah. I think I kind of hinted at it before we went on the air, but like kind of one of the formulas that they have in these Fantastic Four movies is each one, and I got to be honest, the one with Miles Teller that came out in 2015, I have not seen it since it came out. I barely remember it, to be honest, so I won't even bring it up. But I was a real big fan of the original two with Chris Evans, Michael Chitlis, or I think it's pronounced Chitlis, Jessica Alba, and I forget Mr. Fantastic's name. But those movies when they came out, they got a lot of heat. They weren't really critically considered good, but I loved them, and I watched them recently in preparation for this, and I think they still hold up very, very well. I wanted
yeah.
to know what you thought of those movies.
Well, something you need to keep in mind for those movies and a movie like First Steps is that they were going for more, I would say, more of a lighthearted tone, a much more lighthearted tone compared to First Steps and the previous 2015 Fantastic Four movie, because they were really trying to hammer home the family aspects of these characters sticking together during the toughest times. And yeah, I felt as though it could be called a sort of family comedy somewhat. Uh, But yeah, it was an early attempt at getting these characters on the big screen. They it, they were extremely flawed in their execution, but I think they had the right idea in other areas that go underappreciated.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree because I think the focal character in the very first Fantastic Four movie was the Thing. And
Hmm.
that's because like the Thing was kind of a revolutionary character when he was introduced in the comics back in the 60s because you have this guy that it's like when you look at the front cover of a comic book page and you see a guy who can like fly around on fire, you see a stretchy man, you see an invisible woman, and then you see this guy made out of rock who's super strong. It's kind of like, okay, here's this team of ragtag superheroes, but like from the very first issue, the Thing saw his powers as a curse. He's like, as a disability. He's like, I'm made of rocks now. Like, I have to be extremely careful about everything because I can't turn off my super strength. It's just always there. I can never have a normal relationship ever again. And they explore that in that movie very well, where he
Hmm.
comes back and from space, he's been turned into a rock monster, and his wife leaves him. He resents his condition, and the driving force of that movie, funny enough, like Doctor Doom is the villain. He doesn't even really show up as Doctor Doom until the very end. The whole driving force of that movie is trying to, they see their powers as a sickness, as a disease that has to be fixed. and
Mhm.
it's kind of them dealing with their life as these superpowered beings until Reed Richards can figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, each character brings their own interesting dynamic. Reed is, though incredibly smart, can be very absent-minded at times. It can lose sight of the bigger picture. Johnny is the youngest of the group, and he's a hot shot, appropriate to his name, and he's a young go-getter. He wants to prove himself, but he gets himself into trouble in the process. Benjamin Grimm, the Thing, he's like the outcast. He can't really he suffers the most from having his powers because he can't really uh, find a way to reintegrate himself into society. Really so he resents everything around him. He becomes more pessimistic, but by being with everyone else in the Fantastic Four, like that keeps him from going down a darker path. Like if he was the only one that survived like the rocket trip that gave
Yeah.
all of them their powers, he would be the villain. He would be like a lot of other villains in the Marvel universe. But then you have Sue Storm, the Invisible Girl, and I would say besides Reed, she's the most important member of the team because she's sort of the mother or big sister of the group because while these other members have like a strong personalities that can bring them at odds with each other, she acts as sort of the mediator. She knows how to talk to each of them and gets them to work together in the end to solve their problems. And yeah,
Yes.
combine all those aspects and you have very compelling stories.
Yeah, and that was actually something I was a little bit surprised by because I feel too often people like I'm sure you as a movie reviewer, you're familiar with a reviewer called the Critical Drinker.
Yes.
Yes, and I enjoy his reviews. He's a very entertaining movie reviewer, but I feel like it's like he guys like that, they hone in on anything that's political. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
if Sue Storm kind of outperforms Reed Richards, oh well, that's the feminazis imposing their will upon this movie. But the thing is that's kind of how it always was in the comics. You know, Reed is the leader, but like he's not perfect, and Sue Storm is really like his perfect counter, and that really works in this movie because there's tension. The main tension in this movie is between Reed and Johnny and Reed and Sue. You know, because Reed is he's a super genius and he's analytical to a fault. And one of the
Mhm.
things is which I didn't realize this until shortly before the movie, which was kind of interesting. I like the main villain of this movie is called Galactus,
Galactus.
and
Yes.
he's a poster. He's one of their most famous villains because you know famously in the comics he's not evil, he's not malicious, he doesn't hate, he doesn't love, he just consumes. He's Galactus, the devourer of worlds. He's a ancient being from a universe before ours that must feed on planets to survive. So he just goes around and he feeds on planets. And the problem the Fantastic Four faces is we're next on the list. So one of the problems that they face is the Silver Surfer, which is Galactus's herald, that's who goes and prepares the planets to be consumed, warns the population just so they can be ready to accept their fate because it's inevitable. They go to treat with Galactus. They go to try and see if they can defeat him, see if they can bargain with him. And ironically enough, which I didn't see this coming, they actually can because one of the main focal points in this story is that Reed and Sue are having a baby. And like
Mhm.
you mentioned before, Franklin Richards, their son in the comics, he's actually becomes one of the most powerful characters ever. I think like I'm not super familiar with the comics with him in them. Maybe you can correct me on this, but he essentially has godlike power.
Oh, absolutely, he does. Like at one point, he reshapes the universe. That's how strong he is.
Right. So when they go to treat with Galactus, Sue is pregnant with Franklin, and essentially Galactus recognizes the power and potential in this child. And something that was kind of interesting about Galactus that was explored in this movie that's not in others is they almost say, instead of Galactus like needing to feed on worlds, it's almost like he's serving a necessary function of the universe, and it's more of a curse than a
Hmm.
necessity. And it's like, I've been feeding on planets, I've been suffering with endless hunger for billions of years, and your son can take my throne from me. He wants to take Franklin Richards to replace him as the devourer of worlds, and the Fantastic Four refuses, which kind of leads to the main tension of the movie.
Yeah, and on paper, I can see that being a good plot that tests their resolve to keep their family together. But I felt as though it was a bit. Uh, it needed to be developed a bit more because, uh, and we might debate on this a bit, but I had a real issue with how the diplomacy went between them and Galactus initially, because Reed was there to barter with them, or well, the entire Fantastic Four was there to barter with Galactus to get him to not devour their planet.
Hmm.
And when he finds out that Galactus is suffering, it's sort of forced to consume plants rather than doing this out of sort of a like a selfish desire. I was expecting him to like give to offer him like a way of curing him, or like at least asking for a deadline, like asking for some time to look for a cure. But that doesn't really happen, and we kind of get like this chase sequence that I viewed as kind of unnecessary. It you could argue that with Silver Surfer's powers, she could have caught up with the Fantastic Four uh, pretty easily and to catch them, but she doesn't. Um, but yeah, that's just plot stuff. Uh, but once they get back on Earth, like I have another issue. It's like where Reed, he for some reason announces to the rest of the world that he chose that they chose their kid over the rest of the planet, and while that creates an interesting dilemma in the narrative, I didn't really see a reason for him to come out and say that. He could have just kept that to himself while he went to his into his lab and worked on a solution, or attempt to look for a solution. What are your
Yes.
thoughts on that?
Yes, I completely agree with you, and there's kind of a lot to unpack there because you brought up several main points I wanted to make, which is, um, it's a bit rushed because which I did appreciate, that this was not a Fantastic Four origin story. We've seen it before. We don't really need to see it again,
Hmm.
but we do need to understand that these are unique characters. Like it is a fresh Fantastic Four, so we do need to be introduced to the characters in a way. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I was thinking about this the other day. I think the Fantastic Four, I get why they didn't do it, but for the sake of the narrative, it would have been a lot better if it was a series or a TV show instead of a
Mm.
full movie. Because
Yeah.
I actually think this story, them fighting Galactus and the tension of like the narrative points about like, should we sacrifice our son? Why does he want our son? Like all these things, like you said, they're good on paper, but it was just so forced. And I think that's because it was in a movie. I think if it
Hmm.
were like an 8 episode series, you start out with like, we were kind of introduced to the Fantastic Four in like a television show format where a TV show host comes on and is like, "Oh, we all know the Fantastic Four, and they came back, and for 4 years they've been saving us from threats like Mole Man, the Red Ghost, and like all these classic Fantastic Four villains that are really like cheesy, and they kind of work in this like it is like an alternate future. You know what I mean? It's a very like 1950s, 1960s idea of what 2025 would look like. So like, they got like robots walking dogs and all that stuff. Everything's like 8-bit, like Fallout, almost like a Fallout future. So like the Mole Man stealing Pan Am Tower, like I loved that. I thought that was great. And I think if it were a show and that were how the first episode started and we're introduced to the Fantastic Four fighting Mole Man, and then like that way you can like funny enough, you can stretch out the story a little bit, and it's like and now we're kind of getting in like nitpicky, but it's like, you know how they had this like secretary woman? She was like this black woman secretary who was just like in the movie. She just was kind of there. You know what I mean? If it was like they came back, like at, let's say episode 2 or 3, they actually meet Galactus. They come back and they like lie. They're like, they don't really know what to say. Like either they say they defeated him or they say we know how to defeat him, and don't worry, we're safe. But it's clear that they're hiding it. If like at some point the secretary steals the footage from their suits and realizes, oh, they didn't defeat him at all. He's actually like undefeatable and he wants their son, and then it gets released. Like, they don't admit it. Yeah, go ahead.
Another thing they could have done is establish Franklin Richards as already being a sort of child, like a POV character.
Yes.
And when they come back, like he notices something is up with Reed or the rest of his family as they keep it hidden. Yeah, and that's another thing that is raised in the movie. Like at one point, Silver Surfer, she says, if your son were alive and of age, he would make this decision. And I would have liked to see that sort of explored from Franklin Richards' perspective. Because to be clear, like this wasn't really a plot point in Galactus's first appearance. The way Reed Richards solved this issue was he found a device called the Ultimate Nullifier, and he basically gave him an ultimatum.
Yes.
You leave Earth alone, or I activate the Ultimate Nullifier, which destroys the entire universe. That's not what they did with Galactus here, obviously, but
right.
Yeah, and they don't have to. Like they can do this as its own unique thing. They can do a bunch of different. They can pursue it in a bunch of different ways. But the way we got it was just pretty sloppy. But you raised an interesting point in regards to how we're introduced to the Fantastic Four, because Superman does something similar. But I see a lot of people, including the Critical Drinker, saying that the Fantastic Four did this better than Superman. But I'm gonna be honest, I kind of like the quick title cards rather more than getting glimpses of an interesting story that I know we're never going to see again. Plus, it kind of drags the film a bit because Galactus, like the main plot, doesn't start until 20 minutes. Meanwhile, with Superman, it starts like immediately.
Yes.
After the title cards.
I think you're right. And that's the thing is, it's like, I actually think all of the story and narrative potential it had with doing this Galactus storyline, I actually, like, I remember thinking when I heard the villain was going to be Galactus and the Silver Surfer, I was afraid it was going to be exactly what it was, which is like, it's going to be rushed. There's not going to be enough time. Because Galactus and the Silver Surfer were the villains of the original Fantastic Four second movie. But that actually worked really well because we had already been introduced to the characters. And so that movie actually opens up with the Silver Surfer arriving on Earth. All these strange things start going on, and we're introduced to the threat because we already know our heroes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you
It's
have to
also
do
funny that you mentioned
both,
that.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's funny that you mentioned that, like Rise of the Silver Surfer, because here it's they before that the threat was Doom, but now it's
Uh-oh. Are we cooked? Jack, can you hear me? Jack. Uh-oh. We might have a problem, folks. Jack, we got to get the Human Torch in here to save him. He's been frozen. Let me troubleshoot here. Hold on. Oh, he's texting me now. My Mac crashed. Give me a few minutes and I'll be back on. Okay. Let me I'll filibuster here for a second. Let me copy this link. Copy link. And I'm going to text it to myself. I got to send him another link. I see that we got a couple people watching. I know it's not our typical content. And I know it's probably a little jarring. Probably a lot of you that come here for Zeb and I's channel for the political stuff. Oh, all right. It looks like he's back. All right, Jack, you there? Oh no, I don't think I know how to. Guest is in the green room. Add solo.
Hey, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry
Perfect.
about
Let me
that.
get us
I don't
back.
know what happened with my Mac. It just crashed.
No, it's good. Actually, before when I was talking, you paused for a second, but I just kept going, and then you came back, so I didn't think it was any issue. But I'm glad we're good. You were saying, what were you saying about Galactus?
I was just saying, yeah, I was
Silver
just saying it's
Surfer.
funny how, yeah, I was just saying how it's funny how in the first like Fantastic Four movie in the early 2000s, Doom, the first movie establishes Doom as the main threat. Then you get Galactus, but in the MCU we get Galactus, and then Doom gets teased in the end. It's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah, because I think comic, like the movie version of Doctor Doom is he just has electricity powers. In the comic books, the comic book version of Doom is crazy. I mean, he's
Yes.
like he's a master. He's got like his own Iron Man armor, and he's like Doctor Strange rolled into one.
Yes.
One of his armors to protect from vampires, he actually has pieces of the cross that Jesus died on built into the armor to protect him from vampires. He's super cool. So and I'll be honest, like I'm kind of marveled out, but I got a little bit excited. When we saw him.
Yeah. He's by far one of the most lore-rich villains in the entirety of Marvel, which is why he's considered one of the best.
Yes.
Yeah, but getting back to first steps, I was disappointed by how there's a lot of Easter eggs, but the thing about like having a lot of Easter eggs like this is, you know, even though they're fan service, you know that there's never going to be a dedicated project to flesh them out. Like at one point, they reference a lot of other villains like Puppet Master, Wizard, Diablo. I'm just like, I like all those villains. I liked all their stories in the original comics, but I know we're never going to get a story of them, and that they're just here as throwaway lines, which is disappointing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's kind of sad about it is because like there is a lot of Fantastic Four villains that I really like that are like lower level ones. Annihilus, Galactus, Doctor Doom. These are like threat level midnight, world destroying villains. But like the Puppet Master, for example, he's a fun villain to me because he's basically I forget how in the comics, but he gets the power to like mind control people by creating puppets of them. And
Yeah, he has like a alien clay or something. They molds
yeah,
it into the people he wants to control.
yeah, and it's as simple as the Thing is dating his daughter, and he doesn't like that, so he tries to destroy the Fantastic Four. And of course, like you'd flesh it out a little bit more for a movie, but that's another thing where it's like it would have been fun because clearly the Fantastic Four is coming to our MCU universe, so
Hmm.
they're leaving behind all of these classic Fantastic Four villains, which is why I would have liked it to be in a show, because then you did get a moment where they actually team up with one of their past villains, the Mole Man, to
Yep.
hide the population of New York once Galactus arrives. And I think like going to past villains they've defeated, which apparently there was actually supposed to be John Malkovich was supposed to be in
Yeah,
the
he was supposed to
movie.
be Red Ghost. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know for what reason they would go to him, but like for that to be fleshed out more in a TV show, I think I would have enjoyed that a lot more. And because something that they kind of had to skirt around was something I liked in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer was that the Silver Surfer was on Earth for a period of time and they didn't know why. And it gave him time to kind of figure it out because he was the beacon. He was what was leading Galactus to Earth. In this, the Silver Surfer just shows up to warn them about Galactus, even though she works for him, you know? It didn't, like, the purpose and function of the Silver Surfer doesn't make sense. But if it was like she had to remain on Earth to act as a beacon, then you have this period of time where Johnny can kind of like woo her over and like show her Earth and get her to sympathize with their plight.
Hmm. Yeah, the way they executed that subplot in this film kind of irked me a bit because I don't necessarily have an issue with Johnny rising up or like flirting with one of Galactus's heralds to get her on their side, on Earth's side, necessarily. But I had an issue with it being Silver Surfer, who's I know he wasn't. It's not Norrin Rad. It's his wife from his original planet. But she pretty much serves the same role. But the way they go about it in this film was pretty weird because he just spends the entire movie like figuring out her backstory, and then it culminates in him telling her own backstory as if she doesn't already know that. Like I was a bit confused as to how that won her over, or how that won her over to their side. I felt like it would have been made more sense if she was like a uh, if she saw what Earth had to offer, like he showed her what you were suggesting, and she was established to be someone who led Galactus to deserted planets that he just ate. That but innocent people weren't really killed or anything, but he really wanted Franklin because because he would have lifted him from his curse.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to touch on that in a second, but real quickly, we got a celebrity guest in studio. Pedro Pascal is here.
Pop quiz, I have
A
anxiety.
skeleton.
He's
Pop quiz.
clearly. Hold on, you gotta stroke the chin. You know, Willem Dafoe's wife. You gotta.
Pop quiz. Who am I?
He was pissed when he did. He was pissed when he did that. I love that clip.
Yeah, and which funny enough, it's resurfacing now, but it's actually old. It's from like a year ago or a few months ago even.
Damn.
But yeah, Pedro, he's got to chill out a little bit. But that's a good point you bring up. You like that pairing with your idea of what if Franklin was already born and you know maybe he's not like a baby like how he was, but maybe he's like 5, 6 years old, the same age as the Silver Surferess's daughter, and then she can kind of empathize with them based off of Franklin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And
No,
even
go ahead,
then,
go
you
ahead.
don't. Even then, like you don't need Galactus to tell a good Fantastic Four movie. Like going through all the other villains. Oh wait, Josh, I would rather watch a movie starring James Smith and Shia LaBeouf that's 4 hours long than watch Fantastic Four. Come on, guys. Yeah, but like you said, like Puppet Master, Wizard of the Frightful Four, like those are good villains, like in a Fantastic Four story because they communicate certain things about the team. Like with Puppet Master, he can control several of the members, and uh, the other members can use what they know about the members that's being controlled to subdue them. Frightful Four, like they're fighting they're fighting a team of supervillains, so they had to use their teamwork to defeat them, and their lack of teamwork. And even the Mole Man, like he's someone who was rejected by society for being, I think, too disgusting. Like in the comics, he didn't fit into society, and so he lashes out at them with his monsters that he befriended in Subterranea, and that can contrast with the Things arc, like his struggle, his personal struggle of not fitting into society. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just tons of stuff you could do, but all of that just gets cast aside for like a Galactus story where in the end kind of felt like he was nerfed a bit. Like he didn't come across as like this giant godlike entity, and just more so like a generic giant uh, that can be beat with a strategy. Like, and that's another thing. Like they try to their solution to defeating him is essentially using a giant mousetrap with Franklin as a cheese, and I didn't really like that.
Yeah, I did enjoy some of the crazy sci-fi stuff where it's like, okay, Reed Richards, his solution to the problem of Galactus is we're going to teleport the entire planet to a completely different but identical solar system on the other side of the universe. And the thing is, it almost works. But the Silver Surfer has to intervene and destroy all the teleportation things, towers, whatever you want to call them, which goes to show like why Earth is somewhat exceptional. You know, like Reed Richards, like they're capable to kind of thwart this being that's billions of years old, that's kind of used to doing the same thing. But I kind of agree, like in the Rise of the Silver Surfer, Galactus is like this giant cloud, you know? Because it kind of doesn't make sense why a being that exists in space would have arms and legs and be shaped like a man. But you know, he is in the comics. So, you know, like to make it more real in Rise of the Silver Surfer, they make him like this cosmic Cthulhu type entity where it's just this sentient mass of all the planets he's already destroyed. And as a kid, I thought it was stupid, but as an adult, it's like, I actually kind of like that. However, I did like that they almost made him like a robot, you know? They made him mechanical in nature. And I thought that was a really interesting twist. And it's like he does have arms and legs, but he's in like a giant ship that's a drill that just like sucks in and destroys the planets. And I guess all the magma and stuff is pumped into his back, you know, like that's how he consumes the essence of the planets. But something that was explored in the comics that they didn't really touch on in the movies is that apparently Galactus can't just consume any planet. He has to consume planets with life on them. Because apparently they just say it's like he's not actually gaining sustenance from the rock that we live on. It's actually from the sentient life being destroyed. They kind of talk about that in the comics, but that's not really explored in this.
Yeah, was that like a recent thing, or like I'm wondering like how if that was like from his first appearance or when that was established.
It was not that way in the beginning, but I think it was kind of like to explain it now. Something they said, an interesting concept that people were coming up with before this movie was announced, but after Eternals came out, is that Galactus is actually one of the Eternals in the MCU, but he is rebellious, and the reason he destroys planets with life on them isn't because he needs to destroy planets to survive, but because he's trying to kill
Celestials.
the Celestials. Yeah, he's trying to kill them before they're born, and they basically use planets like eggs, but it has to be planets with sentient life because they get the energy from sentient beings, and so he's destroying planets with sentient. So essentially, the sentient life is getting destroyed no matter what, but he's doing it to kill the Celestials before they're born. And I thought that was an interesting twist, but neither here nor there.
That would have been an interesting way of salvaging the failure that was the Eternals MCU movie, because they established the Celestials. Also Brave New World established maintains the Celestials because there's like a corpse that they're mining adamantium from. But yeah, your idea would be good to try it and keep pushing the Celestials to be a thing. But yeah, the movie's First Steps is weird in that it's mostly a doomsday prep movie for Galactus, and with all the characters trying to prepare for him. And it would hit so much harder if this wasn't the first film of the Fantastic Four. If we had something before this to flesh out these characters and the world they're in, because I feel like just this on its own, it kind of falls flat a bit.
Yeah, I agree. There were certain elements in it I did like. Like, for example, I liked that they did not rely heavily on the spectacle of it. I mean, definitely at the end, they did have a fight with Galactus, but they didn't feel the need to force us into situations where you see Johnny, the Human Torch, use his powers, Mr. Fantastic use his. It's not really about their powers. It's not really about the spectacle of seeing these characters fight. And it being a doomsday prep movie was kind of a breath of fresh air for me personally. At least it was different. It was different than we gotta fight, we gotta stop the blue laser. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. And it's also more about the personal internal conflict with how they should go about dealing with Galactus, specifically what they should do about should they actually sacrifice Franklin to save the Earth. Reed and Sue go at each other, have a little back and forth, because Reed is more willing to sacrifice or at least use Franklin as bait, while Sue is more on edge over using him. So it brings up an interesting question of what point would you use at what point would you choose your child over the world? I know in this example it's kind of silly, because if there's no world, there's no child.
Yeah.
But if you were put into a circumstance that's more fleshed out, who would you give up your child and stand against the world?
I mean, I don't have kids, but that's a tough one, dude, because and that's the thing I liked about the movie is it's at one point Johnny, he confronts the Silver Surfer, and he's he's just trying to understand why the Silver Surfer is letting this happen. Why is this happening to us? What did we do? Is there anything that can be done? And she goes, look, I sacrificed my life to save my world. Your nephew would probably do the same if he were old enough to make the decision for himself. And he was like, well, let me, and he was like, I'll do it. Let me take Galactus's place to save our world. And she was like, it's not that simple. You can't, like
Yeah,
your
'cause
nephew
he
has the
doesn't have the
power.
power. Yeah, he doesn't have the
Right.
power cosmic in him. Yeah.
Yes. So I thought that was good. And I thought, like, just speaking hypothetically, if it were a longer form show and you had more time to flesh out certain like aspects of the story, I think the argument between Reed and Sue about, because they just kind of have a fight where, she's like, I know that you're thinking about giving him up. And he's like, I would never do that. And she's like, but you've thought about it. And he was like, well, of course I've thought about it.
Yeah.
I think of everything. I can't help it,
Yeah,
like,
that was just like incredibly forced drama because he was just explaining that, yeah, to them, like to everyone on Earth, it makes sense to just give up Franklin because it's not their child. Like that's all he was saying. It's just kind of like a unreasonable for Sue to get so angry at Reed at that point, especially when
yeah,
we haven't seen them fighting at all, like up to that point. Like they're a pretty happy couple for the most part. But then she's just acting as though, like, out of thin air that him being super smart, like this super smart scientist, is overwhelming to be in a relationship with.
yeah. And thinking like it kind of would have been, you could have that tension there if there were more time to flesh it out, where maybe he doesn't go through with it, but he really, really starts to consider it. He's just like he brings it up where he goes, they're basically they're given a timeline by Galactus. They're given like, you have a year before I get there, or several months, whatever it is. And it's like, we can't, he's like, they're down to the ladder. All of their options are exhausted. And he's just like, what if this is what we have to do? And he basically like almost goes through with it. Maybe because like in this hypothetical show, the Silver Surfer is just kind of lingering on the Earth, and he like reaches out to her and, like is almost going to like give him over. But like then Reed and the Silver Surfer have a heart to heart, and he realizes it's wrong and doesn't go through with it, Like in this, like hypothetically, the Silver Surfer would have character growth and Reed would have character growth that culminates in this moment. And maybe that could be the moment that the Silver Surfer betrays, or is on the first steps, pun intended, to betraying Galactus.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Another thing I thought of is how currently what fans of the comics really like is an evil counterpart of Reed Richards from the Ultimate universe called the Maker. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but essentially he's a consequence of Reed Richards and Sue Storm breaking up, and him essentially leaving the Fantastic Four. He just becomes evil. Like he kind of becomes just as if not worse than Doctor Doom. He becomes like an evil mad scientist. So I was just kind of like wondering in the back of my head, like, what if they like took that and like had it be a lingering afterthought in Josh is mad.
I don't know if you're reading the chat, but they're talking about like pissing in showers, and I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Like,
I have not been paying attention to the chat. That sounds wild, but I don't know. I felt as though it would have been more interesting to like foreshadow the consequences of these characters being like easily being swayed towards evil if they didn't have each other looking after each other.
yeah, that's and I agree. We've kind of hammered the point home at this point, but I think like there was a lot of potential for other stuff. It's like, I don't want to introduce the Fantastic Four again just so they can be in the next Avengers movie. Like, I want a good story. I want like a heartful story. You even brought up, like the Mole Man thing. Like, what if the Thing and the Mole Man had kind of like a heart to heart? As like, look at me, dude. I'm a just as much, if not more, of a freak than you are, but I'm living with it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you can tame these beasts. You could do a lot of good. And that's actually, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but that's one of my favorite moments with Doctor Doom in one of the comics is Doctor Doom. I don't know why he's doing it, but he visits an alternate universe and it's like a utopia. And basically he's like, what happened here? Why is it so perfect? And he found out that the version of him in that universe basically forgave Reed Richards and they worked together and made a perfect world. And it's like, you know, and then like Doctor Doom, he has to face the reality where it's like he's his own worst enemy. You know what I mean? Like that.
Mhm.
I kind of like those kinds of dynamics and stories rather than. That's why like Galactus, he's not an interesting villain. Really, the interest he has is the effect. You know, it's like you could easily replace him with, okay, there's a giant tsunami headed for Earth, but
Right.
really the interesting character in the Galactus storyline is the Silver Surfer, which, you know, she does have a redemption arc, and I actually didn't mind the sex swap. I'm sure like a lot of people were not happy that it was a woman instead of a guy, like in the comics, but I actually think it worked. I think her and Johnny had good chemistry, even though it was like the jokey sexual nature of it was a little bit unnecessary and just kind of stupid. And of course it's a Marvel movie, so they have to just introduce these ill-timed, unfunny jokes for the sake of being in the movie.
Yeah. And now that you mention it, something I find compelling about Johnny that kind of gets like understated is how even is that he gets his powers as someone who hasn't really made himself into something yet, like his like the rest of the people on the team. Uh, so Reed is an established scientist. Ben is a pilot, and Sue is sort of a diplomat. It's kind of unclear whether or not she became a diplomat before or after she got her powers, but it's still something she accomplished.
Yeah.
Johnny, though, doesn't really have anything besides his powers. So you could say that he sort of has this like inferiority complex that that he's already peaked in life, and that nothing and this is always ever going to be known for, which is why he wants to go into space so much. Like he's the only member of the team that wants to like escape uh, or wants to like go to the stars after getting their powers, which I found interesting because he
Yeah,
wants to
yeah.
still make something of himself.
I actually like that a lot too. I thought the one nitpicky thing about it is I liked that dynamic because I've never actually thought about it in that way before. So I think making Johnny the kind of focal character of the movie and giving him this kind of arc of finding himself was really interesting. But the one nitpicky thing I would bring up is he deciphered an alien language from these
Yeah,
recordings they were getting from deep space. And there's literally a moment where Sue, like he basically, you know, Reed, he's just kind of shrugging it off. And he's the one who realizes the importance and shows it to his sister. And she is like, "Oh, I'll show these to Reed. I'll you know, you've discovered something. I'll show it with him." And Johnny's like, "No, no, no. I got this." I think if it would have been better if Johnny realized that there was something there and he confronted Reed directly. And it was just at one of these points where Reed is really stressed out. And then he has like a crash out where he yells in Johnny's face and maybe like breaks one of the things. He's like, "These are nothing." Like, he's like, "I'm the smart one. I have to figure this out. Quit distracting me with this BS." And then Johnny has to like figure out the language on his own and kind of push past his bad feelings about Reed. And then that can actually be a reason, like him snapping at Johnny can be a reason for the tension between him and Sue because that's her brother, you know, and I think that would have been better in the story rather than how they handled it.
Yeah, that would have been better. And as you said, it doesn't make sense for Johnny to not go to Reed because what if if it's important uh, to understand Galactus and a way to stop him, then he has to reorganize all of his calculations to to put this into account. Uh, but yeah, like everyone, as you said, like everyone's on edge. Like Reed is desperately trying to save the Earth and his son at the same time, so it makes sense for him to react that way to Johnny.
Yes, exactly. But with that being said, we're coming up on an hour. I wanted to ask, kind of round it into our two final questions, which is now we've kind of shared our thoughts about the movie. The chat is so used to politics; they're roasting us here for talking about about movies. Get a little cultured, you retards. But what did you think of the movie? Like, if you had to give it a score, 1 through 10, 1 through 5, dealer's choice. What would you give it?
Honestly, I consider giving it a 4 or 5 out of 10. Like, I like these characters. I grew up with them, but I think it sort of also gave me an expectation or kind of showed me what kinds of stories we can get with these characters. So I just wasn't really that impressed with First Steps. And do I think it's going to bring people back to the MCU? I ultimately think that's going to be a question Avengers Doomsday answers. Because I think this, along with Thunderbolts, have been kind of filler movies, if that makes sense. Like, you can watch these and not really have any impact, or it won't really have any impact on the future of MCU films.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I enjoyed this movie more than I enjoyed Guardians 3 and probably everything since. It was different, but it doesn't really have me excited for Avengers Doomsday. It's definitely made me a little bit more excited, but simply because I like the Fantastic Four. But then I start thinking about it's going to be the Fantastic Four with all these crap ass characters that we've seen before, and that I'm a little less excited for. So we shall see what the future holds.
Yeah. And if I can say one thing to the chat, if you guys have like an older movie or any other movie you want us to discuss, like, I'd be willing to sit down and talk with Josh about it if he's willing.
Yeah, Zeb was talking about us doing what did he call it? A movie review, but like for like classic movies. And he said, I think sometime this week or sometime soon, we're going to do a review of, what's it called? Master and Commander. And I'd love for you to join us for that. Cause you've seen that.
Yeah. It's just a great, epic at sea. Yeah.
I love it. So Josh I says, review The Signal. I don't know that one. What is that? Do you know what that is?
No, let me see. I'll Google it real quick.
At first, I thought he was talking about The Sphere, which I just watched, and it was an interesting concept, but a bad movie.
It's a 2014 film. I've never heard of it. I'm willing to check it out.
Is it aliens? It sounds alien-y.
It's a sci-fi movie, and I saw an astronaut, but I'll look more into it.
They Live. I feel like I appreciate it, but I think
movie.
They Live. It's been reviewed to death. Maybe we'll do. Do you like The Fly? You like I love The Fly, dude.
That's Cronenberg's best movie.
Oh, dude, it's so good. It's such a fantastic movie. Josh I says Fantastic Four is harem.
Haram.
Yeah, haram. The Matrix trilogy. That's The Matrix trilogy's good. We definitely want to review stuff that's kind of mainstream, but I want to get into some stuff that maybe y'all haven't seen, like stuff you wouldn't have otherwise watched. But we don't right now, Jack. Thank you for coming on again, Jack. I really enjoyed it. We don't really have any plans yet for a future thing, but other than Master and Commander, we'll definitely stay in touch. Go subscribe to KinoFlex if you haven't already, and we'll definitely be seeing Jack a lot more on the channel for more movie reviews and the like.
Yep, I'm happy to oblige.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. This is Outside the Overton Pop Culture Edition with Joshua Vandernoord and Jack from KinoFlex, and we will catch you guys later.
Yep, I'm still